Well, hey guys, welcome to Hope Rescue Podcast. This is Kimberly Scott, and today I have the great privilege of having a new co-host. She's much prettier than Tim.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, smarter. We can say all the things because he's not here. Smarter, more charismatic,
more likable,
more
well-rounded.
You get to fill in all the things.
All the things. A better husband waits.
Oh, no, that part you get, Bill.
That doesn't make sense.
So for those of you who don't know, Gracie works behind the camera. So, of course, Sophie is our producer, and she does that from home now, and she's got a second little baby. But Gracie is our behind-the-scenes secret sauce to the show, running the cameras. And so a lot of times we'll make jokes and make eye contact with her because she knows.
Yes. There's no one behind the camera right now.
Right. So we're doing this. That's why we're going to have a lot of fun. We could go totally rogue today.
We could say crazy things.
Yes, we could.
No one's here to hold us accountable.
That's true. So for those of you who also don't know, Gracie is our youngest of seven children. And she is of a ripe old age of
20.
Woo! So just to set this up a little bit, we're in a series on basically how not to lose recapturing your voice is the title. Yes. And we were laughing so hard the other day because we were watching a video of
where's this going?
Of Gracie, and she was with all of her other siblings. And I'm just going to set up the scenario and you can tell the story of why we decided you need to be on this episode.
Oh, so I'm going to say that.
Yeah. Go for it. Find your voice.
I think I was like 4 or 5, and it was me, Shara, Jesse, and Malachi, and we were in the backyard, and we were doing a video on listing our favorite movies, okay? And every time I tried to say mine, shot down immediately. Shara, at one point, I go, motorcycles. And Shara goes, shut up, Gracie. Move on.
And that was actually like, we laughed so hard because you were literally screaming out your options in this little pre-recorded vignette. And it wasn't just that. You were talking about your favorite groups, and it was the Jonas Brothers.
Yeah.
Jonas Brothers. And they're like, shut up, Gracie. And you were such a champ because you were super resilient, but you literally had to scream your voice.
I did.
And I think birth order for sure plays a part in finding your voice. Yes. But as we've gotten older, we've discovered the Enneagram, and you are a
9, the best type. Just kidding.
So describe the 9, because I've thrown that out there too.
Right. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I am. No.
You've done a lot more studying than me.
I have. I was very into it for a little period of time.
Yeah.
The 9 is the peacemaker, so we don't like conflict. We try to avoid it. That's an unhealthy 9. A healthy 9 will face conflict in a well-rounded way.
A reasonable way. 9 is kind of the best.
It's the most like Jesus.
I think Jesus was all the numbers.
I read that somewhere.
I think you wrote it.
No. But we're both 9s.
We are both 9s, which is so interesting. And so I feel like when I look at you and I've seen your life, I see a reflection of myself when you were younger.
Yeah.
But I do want to say this just from the get-go. Gracie, at a much younger age, found her voice than I did. And so that's why I felt like it was really healthy to have you on the show. As a 20-year-old, you've gone through the rough years of elementary, junior high, high school, as a 9 and the youngest in the birth order.
Yeah.
But in family dynamics, just to talk about how that impacted you and how you learned to find your voice.
Yes. Well, I remember as a child growing up, there was such a significant age gap between me and the other siblings that...
How significant?
Me and Ronnie are 10 years apart. And
right.
then me and Carrie, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah. So the youngest, closest to you,
Jesse,
though, was Jesse.
And he was 4 years apart.
Right.
But they all had a pair in siblings that were close. And then it was just me and my imaginary friends.
And she
Sally
did have
Bob.
one. Sally and Bob.
Shout out to them. They're right here, actually, behind us. No. But I don't know. There always felt like there was so much going on and so much chaos, and I was just always trying to fight to hey, I'm still here.
Yes.
Do you guys see me?
Yeah.
I would even force you and Dad to sit down and watch me perform a song.
This happened every week during American Idol. On commercial break. Yeah. She would take control of the controller and she would silence it, and she would stand up on the mantle of the fireplace and insist that we would be the judges and we could watch you perform,
Yeah, well-
which was a way for you to find your
It
voice.
was. Yeah. And it was like 2 minutes of undivided attention for me
Yes.
to just capture
Right.
the
An
attention.
audience,
An
finally.
audience, yes. Even if the siblings weren't there, I was like, you are going to sit and you're going to watch me do this song.
Well, and what's interesting about that is later in life, you actually continued down that road with being involved in where the lead in plays at your high school, and we were shocked because Gracie had also a side of her that was kind of coming into junior high more reserved and
Yeah.
quiet. A lot of that wild like performer got
Yeah.
very quiet.
But there's this reason.
Here's the story. Let's hear it.
Well, okay. So growing up as a child, I'm like, okay, I want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
How can I do that? These are the ways I do that. And then there hit a certain point where I was like, oh, I don't think what I have to say is really worthy of being heard. So let me just kind of hold myself back from saying anything. And that was also part of me not wanting to cause any conflict in my relationships or in a situation. So I just kind of withheld myself. And I think you saw that a bit. Just
Well, and junior high, frankly, is rough for everybody, and so you're kind of the runt of the pack. There's a lot of big personalities in our family, and so that little screaming child, see me, hear me child, learned to shove down her voice.
Yeah.
Am I right?
yeah, no, you are.
So,
Yeah.
and so, tell me about the process of how you began to discover your voice.
Ooh. Well, it wasn't until I realized that I valued what I had to say, and I felt like you can't expect others to value what you have to say if you don't value it yourself.
Oh, come on, somebody, take an offering, because that's the whole podcast right there.
Yeah. No, it's true. I just didn't think that what I had to say was worthy, and so of course I'm not going to say that to other people if I don't think that they're going to think it's worthy either.
Right.
So it was really just a matter of me, I don't know.
Do you think you practiced finding your voice, like as
Yeah.
you step out into? Because I feel like as
It's not an overnight situation.
no, yes, but I just remember as a mom watching you. It really kind of more began in high school, early years of high school, where you you had deep convictions about who you were, your walk with the Lord, the friends that you had. It was sort of, you began kind of having a practice ground for speaking your opinions.
Yeah.
That also played out at home,
It did.
around the table.
Yes, there hit a certain point where I realized, oh wait, it ultimately came down to me saying, okay, this is important to me, and I could let this go and just let the conversation pass. But I think that what I have to say should be heard. And it's still a balancing act today. I think you would agree with this. In that,
Oh, for sure.
you have to pick and choose when you want to say what you want to say.
Because don't you agree that if you are living your daily life looking for an opportunity to stand up or speak to something you disagree, well, then your whole life is about being embattled.
Yes, and that is not
That
me.
is not our temperament. So
yeah, I'll sit back for
Yes.
as long as I can.
So
Yeah.
so really, like what we've both learned is that if you really want to be heard, you choose your battles
Choose
wisely.
your battles wisely.
Yeah.
I think Dad was probably the one person that I really had to find my voice with.
Sure.
Just you talked about this in the previous episode. Dad is a big personality, and he'll say what he's thinking all the time, and that is not me. And so it was really with him that I feel like I learned the most. Okay, how do I go about saying what I want to say? And yeah, I would say that.
And what's ironic about that is there's always a risk that there's going to be conflict. And even with his temperament as an 8 or a driver, a leader, if you're not familiar with the Enneagram, he's a go-getter. You can just tell that by his nature. He's very driven and loud. And, when I say loud, he has a voice. He's
can
never
project.
not had a voice.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's always a risk in that because you don't want to bring offense. You don't want to make someone feel attacked. And so you learn to practice finding the right thing to communicate about. But what is ironic in all of that is if you're willing to push through that and you choose your battles, which we've learned, is that ultimately that other person respects you more.
True.
And so that's what's happened with you and Dad is as you begin to flex that muscle of, your speech muscle and your voice muscle, because you always did it thoughtfully, and you weren't throwing things or dropping, F-bombs or anything like that.
I should try that though. I think that would be fun.
I know. Then you flip a table. Yes, which I did at one point in my life.
We should talk about that.
I know, right? But yeah, then it actually ultimately garnered you a lot of respect from him. Yeah. So when you say something to him, it really matters.
But I think I learned that from you because we're very similar in temperaments, and I would watch you go about certain conversations with him where you would say, okay, this is important to me. I'm going to add my 2 cents in this. And then there was other times where you just wouldn't. And I'd be like, why didn't you do that? But I respect it because you had to weigh it out.
Yeah. And for everybody, it's different. Yeah. I've kind of marveled though, because I've shared in the last episode about my first marriage, which was 13 years long. Felt very long, longer than 13 years because I didn't have a voice. And it was a very unhealthy, toxic situation. And I have so many regrets around parenting during those years because I didn't find my voice and was not standing up and stepping out to protect my children verbally and stand in the gap in those situations. So I have a lot of regrets looking back and coming out of that situation, finding my healing through being a single mom and finding my voice again. And then entering, like I shared last episode, into a relationship with Dad, who has a similar temperament, but he's a healthy 8 who loves Jesus, committed to the Lord, committed to loving his family, and me, has proven that over and over again. So it's been a wonderful kind of process, but I've marveled at you because you were so young and you early on have discovered your voice, and you're saving yourself so much heartache, and I celebrate that in you.
Well, thank you. That brings me, I feel like, to another point in that it's so important for the surroundings you're in when, like, realizing your voice matters and who you're around is vital to encouraging that in you. Yes. And you did a really good job of that. Even if I wasn't ready to speak my mind on certain things, you created a safe environment for me to do that. And I think that's really important for parents with young children or, just friends, for you to create that surrounding.
Thank you, honey. Yeah, it's so true for any relationship. If there's not safety, then there's not intimacy.
Yeah.
So safety is what creates the opportunity to have crucial conversations that can be uncomfortable, but also it's so healthy to be able to be transparent and authentic about how you're feeling about all kinds of things, right? One of the things I was thinking about, and we talked about this before this episode, is that being heard often requires being a good listener.
Yeah. Oof.
And it is an investment. You used a term when I said that I thought was powerful.
What did I say?
You said
it's transactional.
It's transactional. Yeah.
If you're doing all the talking and you're not listening, that's a transactional.
And if you're doing all the listening and not talking, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I've seen in you through the years is that you've always been a really good listener. Gracie's the youngest of 7, but often is the person that people go to process challenges because she has a deep well of wisdom.
The deepest of wells.
And you provide that safety for sure. But you have unusual wisdom for your age.
Well, I think part of the reason I'm able to listen, or I try to listen well, is because I did a lot of that growing up. When I didn't feel what I had to say was, valuable. So I would just listen to what other people had to say. And I would think, wow, that was really cool what they said. Or, well, maybe I feel differently. But practicing that skill of just sitting back and listening to what everyone else has to say sort of played out in me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and all along we used to laugh about it, but Gracie said she learned a lot of what not to do by watching her siblings get busted over and over
I have
again.
a list. I have a list. It's extensive.
Yes.
I should start listing them.
Yeah. Let's start from the top with Ronnie. Anyway, so these are so we've come up with some questions.
Yes.
That we feel like well, I just feel like these are questions that are important to ask yourself.
But also your spouse, if you're in a relationship, or if you're a parent of a child, or a dog, honestly, which is my...
These are 5 questions to ask yourself or someone to see if you have lost your voice. So we'll just kind of go back and forth on this that are good questions to ask. And the first is, do you often feel frustrated about not being heard? That maybe your opinion doesn't matter or your inconvenience doesn't matter. So do you feel frustrated?
I think most people would feel frustrated if they felt their opinion wasn't being heard.
Considered.
But that goes back to, if they don't know that you have an opinion in the first place, how are they supposed to make that feel?
Yeah, I think what happens for a lot of people, and I'll just speak to my own experience, is that you can actually numb out.
Oh, yeah.
And not have an opinion after you've had your voice shut down over a period of time. And it is a combination of things. It starts with self-protection.
Yeah.
Because when you voice an opinion, you also put yourself out there to be attacked or criticized, or even if you're conflict averse, you feel vulnerable. And so you'd just rather not feel it all. So have you been in that place before?
I would say so,
where you kind of numb out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you shut down.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. That's how what's happened to me in the past is, if someone is just unloading their feelings all the time, and there's so much that I can't even unpack where I'm at in that moment, then I'll just shut down. I don't have an opinion. You know, don't ask me. If you ask me, I'm not going to give you anything. There's
Yeah. It's like a trigger to, like, just like shut it down.
Shut it
Is
down.
that from Saturday Night Live?
New Girl. It's from
New Girl. Yeah, shut it down.
Yeah, you just hit a certain point where, and that's really not healthy. That's what you want to avoid.
Yeah.
But I think I did that for a long time. Partially just also wanting to avoid conflict.
Yes. Yeah.
We just I don't have an opinion. Everything's good.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's go
right.
with that.
So
Everything's
true.
peaceful.
Everything's good. Let's just focus on
It's
the
a fire
happy.
in here. It's like burning flames.
That's for sure.
Everything's cool on the outside.
And I have watched family members, going back to my original family, of that have that are nines. One specifically that I watched a lifetime of them shutting down and focusing on things that they could celebrate, or focusing on things that were conflict averse, but then never really having an opinion about much. And that's kind of heartbreaking to see, because you what happens is, it's like you miss the depth and the richness of who God created you to be if you're living in an escape zone. But that comes and starts with trauma. And I know that was the case, but trauma that was unresolved. And so it's so valuable to push through that.
It's also, it affects whoever you're in a relationship with, or whoever you're doing that to, because they don't gain anything out of that situation.
Yeah.
They don't get to hear your perspective or rethink where they're at. So it's just both sides are losing in that.
That's such a good point.
You
That's
know?
so true. And the reason why you're put together in the first place is that God wants to use those that balance of that combination of personalities to be able to bring a greater depth to the relationship. So what's the second question?
Well, there's one I really want to point out. I want to ask you, when in those years that in the previous marriage, the first husband, we don't speak of them.
Oh,
no, I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
we do. Baby daddy.
Were you afraid to share the truth of how you felt?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in that situation, there was no safety.
Right.
Because there was rage. Sometimes you never knew what you were going to get. Sometimes, and I won't go in too deep on, he was dealing with behaviors in his life that he had kept secret, and and so there was a lot fueling that rage, and some patterns that he'd grown up with too, of how to not be able to process when you disagree with people who are, parenting your parents and stuff. So I always try to give, to a certain degree, the benefit of the doubt that people repeat behavior that they were raised with.
Yeah.
And so
that's not an excuse.
Not an excuse, especially as an adult.
Yeah.
But it impacted me in such a powerful way, and it actually impacted you children. You were very small at the time, but the older kids learned to shut down completely because of the level of I want to say passion / violence. Yeah. If there was disagreement, there's fear.
Which goes back to creating a safe environment.
Right. Yeah. There was no safety for that.
Right. Which is so important.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
important.
Yeah. So when I, became a single mom again, I learned to practice my voice, and I told the Lord.
I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
You're not getting. No, you can't have that. What?
And I told the Lord, I made a promise to the Lord that I was going to be who He created to me and that is, I am a peacemaker, but I am for justice, and I am for having a voice. And
she didn't let a lady steal Starbucks beans once from Starbucks. She chased her down. She said, "You're not taking those."
Yeah,
she was a real.
I think I probably the pendulum swung a little too far the other way, because I was like I was going to be the champion.
She was a peace breaker in that moment.
It was like the passion in me is like, I'm going to stand up for those who have no voice, and I'm also going to bring justice to the world.
Lord. Mall cop. Kimberly Scott.
Mall cop. True.
But that also brings me, I feel like, to the question of, have you set aside your dreams, passion, or goals in a relationship and shut down how what you want to do?
For sure, I did in my first relationship. In the second relationship, my second marriage, I had to rediscover what those were. Mm-hmm. And
ooh, that's good.
Yeah, I did. And that took time. My greatest passion, and anybody who's close to me knows this, honestly, has been to spend and invest my time in raising my family. Mm-hmm. That's not sexy these days for women. It's not perceived as sexy because...
I would hope it's not perceived as sexy.
No, I'm just saying the word sexy is like, it's not culturally like, ooh, let me do that. Mm-hmm. But it's how God wired me, and I've learned to not apologize for it. Yeah. I have had opportunities throughout the many years to take the stage to mm-hmm. share what God's taught me through different things, mm-hmm. and probably could have embraced and pursued that more, and maybe I will further down the road. But what I've learned to really celebrate is that my greatest passion has been investing in raising you kids. And now, of course, with grandkids, we have 6 and another one on the way. Like, I feel like I'm living my best life. Yeah. So I get to do the things I love the most. Yeah. So, yeah. How about you?
I think that I've definitely seen patterns in the past of me setting aside my passions or my pursuits to encourage them in theirs, mm-hmm. or, just not wanting to rock the boat, because what if our passions conflict, and what if they don't go the same way in life? Well, then what does that look like? So I'd be like, no, that's not a big deal. I don't have to do that. I would I would go through there. Yeah. But that's such death to the soul.
It is.
It's,
it's
just not.
It is. You're shortchanging who God created you to be. And I feel like what a heartbreak to the Lord, mm-hmm. because He hardwired you to accomplish exactly what you're equipped. It's just a matter of using those giftings. Yeah. And when we shut off part of our voice, mm-hmm. we've lost our microphone to the world.
If you do that, wholeheartedly, you shut down what your passions are or your goals for someone else, that's ultimately going to build resentment in the long term. Yeah. For them.
Everybody loses. Yeah. Right. Everybody loses for sure.
So.
Yeah.
Don't do that, kids.
So here's some, I can't believe we're 24 minutes into this. Yes. But I'm going to say, let's alternate on reading these questions of things you need to ask yourself if you think you've lost your voice. So I'm going to read the second one, and then we'll just trade off till we get to, we have 8 of them. The second would be, do you rationalize bad behavior? Either at work, where you see morally bad behavior, or at home, where you're being asked to compromise your values. Oh, that's good.
Boom.
Boom.
And then this one's also really good. Do you spend more time thinking about your partner's happiness than your own?
Huge.
Don't do
huge
that.
one. Yeah. Does your opinion not matter in your relationship? That's huge.
Do you resent that you are the last on the list of needs of your partner?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Partner or / family relationship.
Yeah.
If
Any
you're-
relationship.
Yeah. If you're last on the
Yeah.
list. And what happens is resentment over time can
Right.
turn to bitterness, and that just destroys you.
It does.
It doesn't even affect or impact
Yeah.
the person that has taken that from you.
And are you actually the last on the list, or is that just how you perceive it? Because you haven't told them,
That's a good point.
I don't know.
Very good. And then the last one is, are you willing to compromise your values for the relationship? These are all red flags to having lost your voice. And our heart, and we're going to have one more episode on recapturing your voice, is that if you ask yourself these questions, that you will and you recognize there is a common denominator, that yes, this is me,
Yeah.
that you learn to recapture your voice, and that's our heart. And I just want to say, Gracie, thank you so much for opening your heart. There's a lot more to come, and she's not gonna. This isn't the last you're gonna see of her behind the microphone, because she found her voice, and frankly, we can't shut her up.
I'm going to turn off this microphone, and it's just going to be me yelling in the house.
Singing, most likely. That's how
yes.
she finds her voice a lot.
Yes.
But thank you for joining me.
Thank you for
It's been
having
such a
me.
treat having you. And thank you to our viewing audience, listening audience, for supporting Hope Rescue. You can reach out to us at hoperescue.org. And Gracie, I love you.
I love you.
You are my heart. And I'm so grateful God gave me the gift of you. And all of us have benefited from just who you are in our lives and our families. So love you guys. God bless. And we'll see you next week.